welcome to No Broken Legs. I am Evan Belfiore. Joining me on the phone is Jimmy Champ. Jimmy, I know you're as frustrated as I am about that loss yesterday by the Browns.
Oh man, I feel like we got jumped by the horseman, bud. Man, what a beat down, what a rough way to take a loss for the Cleveland Browns yesterday.
There's a lot to get into, but I want to start super macro level.
Okay.
And the first thing I want to do is talk about this game really reset my expectations for the Browns this year. I really thought they had the potential to be a Super Bowl team, and they're just not there right now. This is now the second game this season that they had the class of the AFC. They had them, and they let them off the hook. And it doesn't seem like when the best teams in the AFC, when the game comes down to the line, they're finding another level. And the Browns haven't showed that they have that level yet. It doesn't mean they can't get there. It just means I think they're probably capped out as a division winner. I still think they can win the division. I think they're every bit as good as Baltimore because I think everything I just said you can say about Baltimore. They haven't found a way to rise above and beat the class. Now, they did beat Kansas City, but that was kind of fluky. I think what Buffalo did to Kansas City this week is more significant than what Baltimore did. But at a macro level, that's sort of where I'm at. This reset what I thought the ceiling was for this team.
So I'm okay, right? So I'm okay keeping it at the macro level for a minute. So I want to ask you a question that I've kind of been asking all over social media platforms last night and today. Do you think that game has the same outcome if our starting offensive line, Jadeveon Clowney, and our defensive secondary are a little more healthy? Do you think it's the same result?
Man, I don't know. I just don't know if that changes the fact that they were able to run all day and all they needed to do was get 2 first downs and they couldn't get a yard.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. If we want to, I guess we could kind of keep it on the macro and get into that where sometimes he plays everything so cool that we forget how Kevin Stefanski hasn't been a head coach for very long. And
he looks tight.
He's still learning what he's doing, and he got tight when the game got tight. I don't understand. I mean, if there was ever a time to have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt on the field at the same time, it was on that first down play on the second to last possession to try to keep the Chargers guessing a little bit. Like that play was like that was kind of there was just some coaching missteps that started on the kickoff. Like there was no reason for Swartz to field that ball. I believe It goes over his head and goes into the end zone, and then you're at least at the 25. Instead, I believe the drive started at about the 15 after the tackle on the kick return. That caused a problem to begin with. But yeah, I agree. The play calling was not well. I mean, I don't disagree with Baker. I definitely think on the second down pass, it sure looked like pass interference. But I have a question because I did not, in the moment of the play, my mind didn't even go to where apparently everybody else's minds went. So They tried the very predictable run play out of a very predictable formation. Nothing fancy at all on the run play on first down. Got no yards. They throw the pass on second down.
You know what that was the play that made me send you the text message that said that's Andy Reid. That's mid-2000s Donovan McNabb, Andy Reid. That's the play he's running to try to start or to try to burn the clock, and the defense knows it's coming, and they're going to blitz it. And give LA credit, they didn't do much to stop the running game overall, but they made some plays here and there, and early in the game they were dedicated to run blitzing.
Okay, well, I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit because that was legitimately the only play where their defense made a stop on the run. The only other plays in the game where they got stops on the run was because holding was called when it was very questionable, including one where the defensive player had a face mask on our offensive lineman and a penalty was called. But I don't disagree.
Yeah, that was a terrible call.
That was a really bad play. And then they threw the ball on second down, get no yards. Coming out of the break of the huddle after the second down play, I didn't even consider they were going to throw the football. Like, I didn't even consider it. And apparently everybody else watching that game looked at that third down play as Kevin Stefanski not trusting Baker Mayfield. Did you feel the same way in the moment or even now?
No, that hadn't crossed my mind until you just brought it up. He definitely got more conservative, but I think they've had problems all year. Any long developing plays downfield, they have not been able to connect with. They've been able to get those 15 to 25 yard, the post that, the ball's out of Baker's hand fairly quickly for a longer play. But any of the stuff where Baker's going back 5-7 drop, survey the field and try and make something happen downfield, they haven't been able to get that at all this year. No, even their two big plays yesterday were what? The Donovan Peoples-Jones breaks a tackle and then goes downfield, and the same thing with Njoku.
Yeah, no, and I agree, and especially with Conklin out. I mean, the reason Njoku got so much play yesterday is because they were using him to chip because the offensive line was so beat up, and then he was able to chip and release and make some great plays. But like I never considered that in the moment. As soon as that ball was incomplete on second down, it's okay. Well, they're going to run the ball on third down. Maybe they'll get a first down. If not, they're punting. The defense has to make one stop. And all over social media, Browns fans, even like Browns fans I respect and I think are really smart Browns fans, and a lot of national media took that play as Kevin Stefanski has zero trust in Baker Mayfield when all the other coaches would have trusted the other top 15 quarterbacks in the league to make that throw on third and 10. And maybe they're right. I don't know. Just in the heat of the moment, like that wasn't what I thought at all. But I do want to, there was just, like at the end of that game, I did not feel like Baker Mayfield was the reason the team lost. I mean, both Higgins and Peoples-Jones could have caught that Hail Mary in the end zone.
Yeah, I was disappointed with his effort there. And just for the people that are complaining about the pass interference on the Hail Mary, just go back in time and show me the video of a pass interference call being called on a Hail Mary, because it never happens.
Right. But here's what I will say where I feel like the complaint is valid. Like, we can talk about another penalty that turned the game more than this one, but normally the pass interference that happens on a Hail Mary is when the ball is in the air coming down and 8 people jump up for it at one time. That defender shoved Donovan Peoples-Jones at the 3-yard line so hard he fell into Njoku, took him down. Like, it absolutely disrupted the play, although it should have made it easier for Higgins or Peoples-Jones to catch that ball. So, Baker couldn't have put that ball in a better spot in that throw. One of them should have made some effort to catch the ball, and I don't really feel like either one of them did. But I just didn't come away from that game like that was Baker's problem at all. But I will agree, the 2-minute warning once they got the ball back, brilliant analytical smart stuff, forcing Eckler into the end zone. It was the right thing to do. Get him in the end zone, let him score. Let's get the ball back, go down and score a touchdown and win the game. But then the play calling, but then it was like there was no urgency. The play calling wasn't well. And as we talked about, as so many people have talked about, where was Odell on that drive? Why were there not slants and outs thrown to Odell Beckham on that drive? I don't know. But it just, the play, where they threw the football, the play calling in that drive were horrible, right? But, the Cleveland Browns have to win games if they score 42 points, right? That's just what it is. Like injuries aside, having Denzel go out, not come back in, Greedy was in and out. Our boy, Wu, JOK, missed most of the game. I believe he may have even he was in the medical tent, may have went to the hospital with the same thing that Joe Burrow had the injury to the throat. So I'm not totally sure what happened there, but that's now the third time in Baker Mayfield's career that as a starter, he's lost a game where the team has scored 42 plus points. No other QB in NFL history has more than one such loss like that on their resume. Like that's rough. Baker did enough to win this game. They did enough, but Kevin Stefanski just those last two series, we're going to be, we're Browns fans, but we're also analysts of football in the game. And Kevin Stefanski couldn't have called that game more worse those last two series. I don't get it. You really should have thrown the ball on first down and then ran on second and third. That should have been the decision because they knew you wanted to run the ball on first down.
Was it you I was texting about that said, were you the one complaining? I can't remember if it was you or John that mentioned why Chubb wasn't on the field. And then I said, why wouldn't you do some form of run pass option with Chubb on the field or a play action with Chubb where Chubb's on the field as the decoy because they were trying to key in on him because he was just destroying them. But it just seemed like they could have come up with something more there. But yeah, I mean, to go back before we get too far away from it, your point about Baker being this game and Baker, I have my notes. I have a list of things that are bad. Baker's not listed on that list because he wasn't he doesn't belong on that list. He was good yesterday.
I agree. I mean, he was really good. It's just, I mean, the defense, once again, you had players playing on the field at the same time on the defense who have not played together, and it showed with 2 broken coverages. Justin Herbert played a really good game, but 112 yards of his offense came on throws Nathan Peterman can make. There was nothing.
First one, I don't know what Delpit was doing there. It looked like it was pretty obvious just from the coverage that he was supposed to be the deep safety to bracket and and then they have Green in there who's an undrafted free agent. They had to bring him in because of injuries. I don't know who blew the second coverage late. I didn't get a chance to see that. They didn't show the replay, or if they did, I missed it. But I don't know what happened there, but that was atrocious.
Yeah, I believe the second one was a combination of Johnson and Green not realizing who had that deep over, because they ran Williams to the deep post and then ran a cross underneath of it. So really the safety should go with the underneath cross and the corner should have stayed with Williams. But I mean, they haven't spent time together. And I'm actually like I don't want to beat up Green, because for the amount of snaps that he was on the field, he made some okay plays. And he got beat by premier wide receivers in this league, which is going to happen.
He's an undrafted free agent, and Allen and Williams are really good wide receivers.
But
he's going to need help, or he's going to get beat. That's unfortunately how that's going to play out, and that's how it did play out.
But once again, I mean, I saw, without JOK out there, I saw Mac Wilson not make any big splash plays. But with the beat-up secondary, I would have liked to have seen, especially there in the second half, I would have liked to have seen Joe Woods maybe just call up some big-time blitzes. Your corners couldn't hold up in coverage anyway, so maybe try to just run some more blitzes, try to get a little bit more pressure, see what you could do there. It just ended up not being meant to be, and it sucks because they played a great game. But I agree with you. With this level of health that the Browns have, they are not a Super Bowl contender. But we don't know what it's going to look like 12 weeks from now. Who's going to be the healthy team in 17 weeks, who's not. So I think there's still an AFC championship window for them if they are healthy and they play cohesive and they play well. Now, I think coming into the season, we thought, the Browns are in that 3rd to 5th best team in the AFC. If some things fall their way, they would have a chance at 1 or 2. That seems to have gone away, but I don't think anything's changed. I think they're still the 4th or 5th best team in the AFC. Depending on where you want to put Baltimore and Cleveland, I think they're still the 4th or 5th best team in the AFC. So I don't know if much has changed, but I agree with you with what you said, just to start from the macro level, with the way they're injured right now and not pulling out these 2 big games early in the season. Probably second round of the playoffs would be a ceiling for this team.
Yeah, and I should probably. A lot of this is going to be negative because there's a lot of frustration today, and this team's still going to be 11-6, 12-5, and they're going to make the playoffs. And it was just. It's frustrating for me, like I said earlier. These are the big games that feel like playoff games, and they beat a falling apart Pittsburgh team in the playoffs last year. That's not an elite AFC team. They haven't beat an elite AFC team yet. And man, they had another one that they let go. And I don't want that to start being the narrative around the team. Can they win these games? Because they lost both their games to Baltimore last year. So if they lose the first game against Baltimore before the bye, they're going to hear about it for 2 weeks.
Yep.
You had mentioned OBJ. And I have in my notes 9:26 second quarter, no OBJ. And then right after that I wrote, and then he drops 4th down. What? So where was he? Where was he?
I don't know. I don't understand. I mean, clearly they went heavy on the tight ends because of the problems on the offensive line. But there were a lot of 1 and 2 wide receiver sets today that were either Peoples-Jones and Higgins, Higgins and Schwartz, Higgins and Peoples-Jones and Schwartz. Not as much OBJ. I don't understand it. I don't get it. These are the games that you have OBJ for, and he wasn't used. He wasn't deployed. Not even used as a fake.
Yeah, it's like a jet sweep decoy when they go in motion.
It was really frustrating because that ball, it's early in the game, but that ball Baker threw down the right sideline to Schwartz, where there was hand fighting going on, but Schwartz immediately jumped for the ball. If he just keeps running, he can probably catch that and have a really nice game. Now that OBJ is healthy, why aren't those balls going to OBJ? Why the hell are they going?
Isn't that why he gets $16 million a year to make those catches?
Why are they going to a wide receiver who has hardly any experience as a wide receiver? That was the whole thing with Schwartz. He's got an opportunity, but he's got to learn how to play wide receiver because he had very few targets in college. And we're throwing this ball to him when it should be going to OBJ because if Schwartz just keeps running, he stopped and jumped. If he just keeps running, he probably catches that ball or at least draws the pass interference call. But once again, where's OBJ? Why isn't he on the field? I love Donovan Peoples-Jones. He made a couple great plays. I wish he would have had some idea where the ball was on that Hail Mary. Unfortunately, he didn't. I don't know why he kept running towards the back of the end zone, but he made some really nice plays. Odell made one really nice catch in this football game. But that drop on 4th down, I don't even understand it. I don't really understand why they're throwing the ball there, to be honest with you. It was 4th and 2 or 4th and 3. Just give the goddamn ball to Nick Chubb and get the first down. I don't understand why you're throwing the ball anyway, but that's the play to throw it. You got Beckham on a short slant across the middle of the field against the safety. There's nobody in front of him, and he lets the ball bounce off his chest. That's unacceptable. $16 million, that's unacceptable. Much like my criticism of the way we use Austin Hooper, now it's time to start criticizing how we use a healthy OBJ, because that was an unacceptable drop. Where was he in key situations in this game? I don't know. I don't know why there weren't 3 balls thrown his way on that last drive. That's why you have him. And, as much as the referees were tilted this game to the Chargers, plain and simple, like it or not, a lot of people not talking about it, that's fine. You want to pretend like it didn't matter. It absolutely mattered. We can get into that if we want to. But we do know one thing Odell has done in his career is draw pass interference calls. Throw a 30-yard bomb to Odell and give him a chance to try to catch it or draw a penalty and get some cheap yards downfield. I don't understand it. And, we praise Kevin Stefanski a lot, but I know he'd love to have the last 3 minutes of that football game back. Hopefully they were learning teachable moments for him and they're able to get better going forward because you got a tall task coming up next week too. So, man, this was a rough one. This was a rough one for the Browns to lose because they should have won. You score 42 points in another team's house, you got to win the game.
I said earlier I don't want to get into the officiating, and that pass interference call on Green where it was clearly offensive pass interference was just atrocious. And there was a play, I want to say in the 3rd quarter, where Garrett was stunting underneath and he had a lane. The lane was opening up for Herbert, and he did a pirouette because the offensive lineman was holding his shoulder so badly and it went completely uncalled. But this is the NFL, Jimmy. NFL officiating is terrible. Professional sports officiating is overall not very good. And we see this all the time, and the NFL has made some changes to try to make the officiating better, but it's just made the officiating worse. So I don't know what the solution is. They were terrible. The pass interference call was ridiculous. I don't know how you miss Treader getting choked by a defensive lineman. I don't know how you miss that. I'm surprised. I'm actually surprised they saw the face mask on Kareem Hunt, to be honest.
No, I agree. And I'm fine. If you miss the defensive hands to the face on Treader, that's one thing. But to call Treader for holding when the defensive player, he can't even get his hands on the defensive player because the defensive player has his hands in his face mask.
Yeah, and you can't hold him.
And they converted a first down run on that play. And you wiped it off. And I know a lot of Browns fans are like, I'm not, and I'm fine with you saying I don't want to get into officiating. I'm going to get into the officiating because we all watched the same game. There's no way. Like, I know, like, the praise this morning is just the Chargers are one of the two best teams in the AFC. Justin Herbert is probably one of the two best quarterbacks in the AFC, or one of the best three. He's the guy you want. Justin Herbert played an incredible game. His team should have lost because he threw a horrible fucking pass on 4th and 4 where his wide receiver had a hold of the defensive back to make sure the defensive back couldn't catch it because he was in a better position to catch the ball, and they called defensive pass interference on the ball. On the play on 4th and 4, the Browns up a touchdown would have given the Browns the ball at the 50-yard line. You know what would have happened then? Nick Chubb would have ran the ball right down their throats, and the Cleveland Browns would have won the football game. Like, you cannot convince me otherwise, because Nick Chubb just went between the guards and tackles all day long, and they would have had full momentum of the game. They would have won the game. They would have sealed the game. I'm fine if you miss a call in the first quarter. 7 minutes left in a game like this in the fourth quarter, you either can't throw a flag on that play or you got to get it right. Like, plain and simple. Like, I don't understand. Like, we're right back to where we were when you had an NFC championship game decided by an egregious no call on pass interference. Like, you let the coaches challenge pass interference for a year. You realize our officials were horrible at calling pass interference. So the answer was, let's just not let them challenge pass interference anymore. Because that's what the NFL wants. We don't want accountability for our officials. We don't want to add an extra official. We don't want somebody in the booth who can actually make a decision over top of the officials and say, dude, that's not defensive pass interference. We don't want that because we don't want to mess up the flow of the game. And the flow of the game was to give the Chargers a first down that they had no business having. Like,
yeah, the officiating, like, it's been bad league wide. Baltimore has a win that they shouldn't have. If you don't think that's going to come into play in the AFC North, you're crazy. They might. That could win them the division. Joey Bosa was arguing with the officials last week, which brings me to my hypothesis, Jimmy.
Yeah, go for it.
The NBA is becoming, or the NFL is becoming more like the NBA.
Yep.
I think this was a clear-cut case of Joey Bosa voiced his opinion. The officials knew they were wrong, and they came into this game and they're like, even just that little bit of bias towards LA, if you're an official, I think he gamed the officials. It's in LA. I don't think they wanted to be booed, and I think they made sure they weren't booed. They wanted to keep that game close. It felt like that was what they were doing. That's how it felt as a Browns fan. I don't know how it felt to outside observers, but it just seemed like that call in particular was it's just so egregious. I don't even see, I still don't understand what that call was like. What did he see that he made that call on Green? And something else that I noticed, the broadcast, there's a lot less replays on penalties.
Yeah. Yep.
It used to be every single penalty, they would show you the replay and they would show you the penalty. Yep. And it seems like, and this isn't just a yesterday thing, this has been watching games for 5 weeks now. Seems like it's maybe half.
Yeah.
And that's just one of those things that I think just feeds into just everybody focusing so much on the officials. And it seems that they just can't seem to get this right. They haven't been able to figure it, they couldn't figure out what a catch was for years, and now they can't figure out what pass interference is. But the calls that they're blowing aren't borderline calls. Like, they're just blowing calls.
Yeah, I mean, that announce team yesterday they tried to stay neutral, but they were definitely tilted to the Chargers side. I mean, everything Herbert did was gold. And like I said, I mean, Herbert's two best throws of the game. He threw two absolutely ridiculous throws to Keenan Allen that a very small percentage of human beings walking the earth can make. But the two big touchdown throws that tilted the game, there was nothing special about those blown coverages. He didn't do anything special on those plays. But the broadcast team was definitely tilted a little bit towards the Chargers. And on both the Treader replay and the replay of that DPI, even the announce team was like, yeah, that's not right. That's not against the Browns. So it's bad when like they're pretty much cheering the Chargers on and had to be like, yeah, those are not penalties against the Cleveland Browns. And I agree. Like we should probably, let's get away from, I get away from the officials. I apologize for going there, but man, I mean, that's a play. Like you can't throw that flag. You just can't. Like that's horrible. And it sucks. And, Baker came out in the press conference and, I doubt he'll get the same credit Joey Bosa gets because Baker's the one quarterback in the league who can get hit in the head and not get roughing the passer called, but he just asked for the games to be called the same because he felt he saw some pass interferences that weren't called his way. But to the good, my Lord, is Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt a deadly combination, man. Like, it's just so good. And the thing is, like, it appears this Browns team is not built to play from behind. With their defensive limits right now because of the injuries, they're going to play from behind some. But I think if they just stick with the run and the play action boot game, they're going to win as many football games as we thought they were going to win.
Yeah, but what's frustrating is they had the game where they wanted it. They were up 14 in the third quarter. This is where we're supposed to run Chubb and Hunt, and we're supposed to bleed clock and put enough points on the board to limit possessions so that we end the game. And they haven't been able to do that against Kansas City. They weren't able to do it against LA. And those are two teams that they're going to have to beat if they want to do anything in the playoffs. It's very frustrating. So if we look at let's stop dwelling on the Chargers' loss, because next week doesn't look much better because the Cardinals come in with a very explosive offense. And right now it looks like Newsome, Ward, and Greedy Williams may all be out, which is just terrifying, especially if Clowney's out as well, because the D-line wasn't as good without him.
No, not at all. Not at all. They did not play as well. McKinley was not able to splash. Miles only got through the line a couple times. He did make a couple nice plays, but he only got through a couple times. Jackson, when Jackson was in there, he didn't really splash either. It looks like Clowney on the defensive line is kind of a key piece to unlocking that. And then on the back end, I mean, it's going to be, we said these 3 games the Browns had, they needed to come through at 2-1. I don't know if they can beat the Cardinals with this beat up secondary and no Jadeveon Clowney. Maybe with Clowney, maybe you have a chance to get enough pressure on Kyler that you can make some things happen. But without Clowney and even 2 of those 3 pieces on the secondary, it could be a really long day in Cleveland next week.
On the good side, Conklin was out, Wills was out. I don't know what's going on with Teller. He seems to be able to run block. His pass blocking hasn't been as good this year. But in general, yesterday, the offensive line held up in pass blocking better than they have, I think, most of the games this season. They weren't perfect by any means, but they were better. They were giving Baker time to find guys, even if there weren't guys out there to find.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that came to portions of the game where Stefanski's game plan was really good, because he said, I'm going to make the reads easier and quicker for Baker, and they did that. There wasn't a lot of 5-7 step drop. It was 3 steps, get the ball out and go. And that helps because the offensive line is beat up and they can't. Right now, they're not able to hold up for long periods of time. Hopefully, Wills is healthy, because the Cardinals have some guys that are a problem on the defensive line. So the O-line is going to need to be healthy to pass block, because it appears to not matter which one of the 7 offensive linemen play. The Browns can run the ball just because the scheme and the running backs are so good, which is still a plus. I mean, we talked about how the Cardinals were really bad against the run, and that trend continued. The Browns just, like you said, until they needed to ice the game, the Browns could do whatever they wanted to, and then Stefanski just got a little tight on the play calling. Just keep giving it to Nick Chubb, bud. Just keep doing that.
Yeah, that's a good strategy moving forward. Just give the ball to Chubb. And he was really unleashed in this game, and he showed everything that makes him special. He can always hit the edge. Whenever there's that defender there, he never gets hit in the hole. He always evades that defender, and he gets to the edge. And that's why he's always ripping off 4 to 6 yards, even when there's guys on him. It's a lot of fun to watch, but it is also equally as frustrating when you need a couple of first downs to ice the game and he doesn't even see the field. That has to change, because that is what I ranted about the entire Freddie Kitchens season. Why is the ball not going into the hands of the most important people when we're in the most important situations?
Yep.
That's when they need him. That's when he's supposed to be the leader and take the ball and lead them to victory. And they didn't even give him the chance, and that's really frustrating. So I hope Stefanski learns that lesson.
Yeah, I mean, it's Kareem Hunt has been nothing but spectacular this year as well. Kareem Hunt's been really good, but I would feel much better if it's Nick Chubb getting tackled for a no-yard gain than Kareem Hunt in that situation. I would rather Nick Chubb have that ball and have that opportunity. And it's nothing against Kareem Hunt. He's been excellent, but I just feel like Chubb has earned that. He definitely earned it yesterday. My goodness. I mean, 166 yards on the ground. Like, give him the rock in that situation. And then once again, like, if he's not going to touch the ball on first down or second down, then the play's got to be a pass to Odell Beckham. Like, I don't understand it. I'm curious, to watch and read through all the notes and interviews from today's press conferences just to try to get a feel where everybody is, because man, that's gotta hurt. Like, I mean, it's gotta sting for that team, because they, with a beat up secondary, they did enough to win that game, and the offense just could not get. And really, I think the second to last drive was more problematic than the last drive, because we know the offensive line was very beat up at that time, and pass blocking without a tight end holding up to get Baker to push the ball deep downfield was going to be a problem. And that's just kind of what it was. So, but I think it was that second to last drive. That's the drive where the Browns could have won the game.
Yeah.
Like that
they're just dealing with
drive.
a lot of the fallout of a lot of dominoes. The offensive line hasn't held up as well, so they don't have as much time to throw. That means you can't get the ball downfield as much, so that limits a lot of what they want to do. Jarvis is out. You're running a lot of plays with Schwartz and Peoples-Jones as your number one option, and that's you shouldn't be doing that with OBJ, a healthy OBJ. I know Jarvis is out, but normally the plan is that those guys are your third and fourth options, and they're just not holding up as number one and number two options. So health plays a big part, which is why I'm just look at the schedule, and it's just scary because they've got a Thursday night game coming up after Arizona, and they're beat up. And we know Thursday games can really beat teams up. So if they can just find a way to sneak through these next two games and not lose any more bodies, at least they'll get a little mini break. They'll get that week and a half off after Denver.
Yeah. I mean, the way the injuries are looking right now, it's going to be hard to think they get a win against the Cardinals. So, you've got to find a way to stay healthy but beat Denver on Thursday night. And then, man, you're just going to have to go on a run. You're going to have to start stacking victories.
And they're tied with Las Vegas, and they're tied with Denver in the standings right now. So they'll see both of those teams, and then they'll see Cincinnati twice. I think they're better than Cincinnati. I know Cincinnati's better, but I don't think they're better than the Browns. Even when the Browns are beat up, I think they should be able to take care of business with the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I haven't seen any reports this morning, but I mean, Joe Burrow did go to the hospital after the game last night.
He took a really dumb shot. He scrambled and got a nice scramble run, and then he just took a shot to the hip that he really didn't need to take.
Yeah, I agree. So, we know their season kind of hinges on Joe Burrow's health. So, they've got to figure out, is he okay or not? But I agree with you. We had talked all year, like this front part of the season was going to be rough for the Cleveland Browns. They just needed, but what did we say? We just need a few wins and stay healthy. And neither of those things are happening right now.
Thankfully open up a little bit.
Yep.
They just got to get through this stretch.
Yep.
All right. Well, Jimmy, we'll have to get through another week to wait for the Browns to see how they respond. But thank you for joining me this afternoon.
No place I'd rather be, brother.
All right, and thank you for listening. For Jimmy Champ, I'm Evan Belfiore, and you are listening to No Broken Legs.
Every action has a repercussion. Lyrical bullets don't make me get the bussin'. Representing for the people.